Ooh. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Energy Realities podcast. I'm Dr. Tammy Nemeth. I'm the host today. It's my turn. I love it. We've got two outstanding people today that were, of course, part of our normal panel. Irene is still on holiday, sadly. Hopefully, she'll be back next week. So today we have the irrepressible Stu Turley. Stu, how are you today?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
That's it. Just a beautiful day. Nothing more.
Oh
Just
no, buckle
beautiful.
up. It's going to get weird.
Okay. Are you in Texas today or Oklahoma?
I traveled into Oklahoma for a few days and I'm back into Texas. So just got things to take care of.
Okay. Sounds like
You sure
fun.
got a heck of a commute, Stu.
Yeah.
Yep, somebody's got to do it.
And then we have the amazing David Blackman, who took his hat off today. Hey, David, how you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, my stupid background wasn't picking it up, so people are just going to have to deal with my unkempt hair, what's little is left of it today. Um, anyway, there's
For our
technical issues
podcast
everywhere.
listeners, David Blackman has a lot more than I do.
Yes, I do. That's my only saving grace.
And David is from the sunny area of
North
Texas.
Central Texas, just below
North
Fort
Central.
Worth, where the grass is green and the vegetation is overgrown because of all the plant food in the air.
Yay! Plant food. Love it.
Plant food.
Well, today we're talking about choke points. We figured it was about time that we have a little conversation about the choke points that are part of the global energy trade, and in fact, all of sort of maritime cargo transport, fertilizer transport, anything that goes by sea tends to go through some kind of choke point or another. And today we're talking about the energy ones. And of course, as people know, the Strait of Hormuz has been open, closed during the operation going on in Iran. And people were like, yay, so now they can reroute oil and take it by the Bab el Mandeb Strait, which is on the other side, where Saudi Arabia had uh, running stuff down there. But of course, it borders Yemen. And Yemen and the Houthi rebels have been trying to close it down for a long time. Since I think 2022, 2023, there's been various actions that the Houthis have done. And I think what this really demonstrates is the need for the international community, not just America, but the international community, to keep those international waterways open. So I'm going to throw it out to David first. We have Stu's provided this amazing map which shows the various choke points around the world. There's five critical ones, and then you can add another three to five more, which are subcritical. I think this map probably has all of them. But if you look at it for our podcast listeners, um, Stu has zoomed in on the key oil bypass routes and potential pipelines for Saudi Arabia and some of the other uh, Gulf countries. And so there's this one that goes from the Persian Gulf all the way across Saudi Arabia to Yanbu, which is on the Red Sea. And then the tankers would fill up there and either go through the Suez Canal or to go south by Yemen, through the Bab el Mandeb Strait, and that's where the Houthis are now targeting tankers and whatnot. So, um, David, I'm going to ask you, what do you think? Should the international community be doing more? That it's not just America, the policeman, but should the international community be banding together to send a message that international waterways should not be exploited and hijacked um, by by groups such as the Houthis, but that the international community should keep them open? What do you think?
Well, yes. I mean, I think that the answer to that question is an unqualified yes. But because the United States and Israel basically kicked this war off unilaterally. The countries that have been U.S. allies for at least since the end of World War II have decided, because it's Donald Trump's war, that they don't want to pitch in at all. I mean, it's all Trump derangement syndrome isn't just a United States mental illness; it's worldwide. But this, the stopping or the shutting down of these key choke points impacts other countries really more significantly than they impact the United States. So you would think that the global community, which has always claimed to be concerned about keeping choke points like these open to international traffic, would be outraged by the actions of the Houthis and, at Iran's bequest, obviously. But they're not, and it is what it is. And so, the, there was a famous saying by Donald Rumsfeld at the advent of the Iraq War. Um, when he answered a reporter's question about who's responsible for something that had happened over there, and he honestly answered, "Well, we are. You broke it, you own it." Well, the United States and Israel broke this. Now we own it, and that's for better or worse. But a lot of people in countries other than Israel and the United States are going to suffer because of it. Um, so you going back to that first map, the Sumed pipeline has become a topic of much discussion on social media by the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who have suddenly become experts in all of this. Uh, I've celebrated the fact that Saudi Arabia can just put all that all into that pipeline and get it all out that method. Well, the problem there is that Saudi Arabia has been shipping upwards 5 to 7 million barrels a day out through the Red Sea, most of it going out the southern route to Asian markets, some of it going out through the Suez Canal to European and other markets to save, tanker transit time to their destinations. Uh, so that's 5 to 7 million barrels a day landing at Yanbu and being put on tankers. The problem is the Sumed pipeline going across Egypt has a total capacity of 2.5 million barrels a day, and other countries are subscribed to it. It's not a Saudi owned pipeline. And so, even though there's 2.5 million barrels a day capacity, the Saudis aren't going to be able to occupy all that capacity. The other pipeline, the Elliott Ashkelon pipeline, that's shown there, has a smaller capacity, about half of that. And even totaled together, even if Saudi Arabia could occupy the total capacity of those lines, it doesn't make up, for what they had been shipping out. And so, as long as Bab el Mandeb remains closed, the global deficit, which is already 5 to 7 million barrels a day, despite everything, is going to increase, and that should be putting upwards pressure on oil prices that, for some weird reason, hasn't been happening the last couple of days. And of course, our manipulated media attributes that to the fact that the U.S. and Iran have not been blowing each other up for the last couple of days. And so traders are decided that everything's rosy and we're going to have a ceasefire finally that actually lasts, which is nonsense and everybody knows it. And I'll let Stu talk about the rest of that topic of how and if the market is actually being manipulated by someone behind the scenes. And we don't think we know exactly who, but obviously market factors are no longer governing crude markets globally.
Well, to be fair, I don't think they've really been governing the markets for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just this.
Yeah, I just think it's
Yeah.
gotten more extreme here over the last month or so.
Yeah, probably. Aslan Pilotcar 4450 has a really good point where he says nobody else has a real navy, and part of that goes to Trump's complaint over the past 6 years, longer, maybe 10 years, that the European Union and the other NATO members have not been keeping up with the spending to ensure that they do have a robust defense capability, whether it's navies, armies, whatever. That money was being spent elsewhere to social issues, to net zero, and various other things. And rather than spending on what's required in order to keep their borders safe and the international waterways safe or whatever. And the same thing happened when the Somali pirates were doing their thing. Everybody was kind of like, well, do we want to do anything? Who's going to lead? Do we have enough ships? Can we actually project power? And it seems like the United States is expected to project power, but nobody else does. And I know I would like to at least acknowledge that France has been trying to
Yeah.
assist to some extent. They've put ships out there. I don't know if the UK has very many ships it can provide, but they like to say they offer convening power. So they bring countries together and they have a chat and decide not to do anything. A lot of talk, no action. Canada can't really help. We don't really have much. Maybe we can bring the beer. We'll have the beer ship
Can
help
I
supply
add
everybody
one
else.
one small counterpoint to that though, is that this has mainly been an air war to this point. The blockade, of course, is a different subject at Hormuz. That's a naval war. And France and Great Britain both have pretty powerful air forces, as does Saudi Arabia, um, that could have and maybe should have been deployed here to show some international unity on this matter. And yeah, I mean, the United States has launched a lot of the fighter jets off of aircraft carriers, but also from bases in the Middle East that are open to use by both France and Great Britain and Germany, for that matter, which also has a pretty powerful air force. Could have, but hasn't been offered.
Yeah.
And it's a departure from the norms that have existed since the end of World War II. The United States voluntarily took responsibility for keeping these sea lanes open, the main responsibility, as the policeman of the world under all these treaties that were signed at the end of World War II. Um, and that is not something that's been formally ended. And so I think that there's strong arguments on both sides of this. Is all I'm trying to say. Is the United States has said, yeah, we'll take on that responsibility if we're not capable of carrying out that responsibility at Hormuz or Bab el Mandeb. Then it's time for the international community to either say, we want those things to be open and we're willing to help, or not. And so far, the answer has been or not. And for the most part, with the
Right.
exceptions that you noted.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyway.
Yeah, those are excellent points. Thank you for bringing that up. With respect to the pipeline bypasses and whatnot, there's limitations to what pipelines can do. Like pipelines can move so much oil, but in the end, you still have to load them onto ships and you have to move those ships elsewhere. And they're vulnerable. So, Stu, given that a lot of what's been happening, I would say, over the past 4 years, whether it's the Russian engagement in Ukraine, whether what's happening with Iran and the Houthis, there's been changes to how warfare happens. There's a lot of drones and pipelines, and all these facilities are vulnerable. They're vulnerable to drone attacks, which are relatively cheap, cheaper than a missile. You send in a suicide drone and boom, you hit a refinery or a depot or whatever. So what's your assessment of what happens with choke points given the changes in warfare?
Thank you for that question, because it opens up 9,000 responses. And let me get started. All right.
Okay.
I went to
Lots.
Oklahoma State, but I got 10 fingers. So let's go through these points. First, number one, the Strait of Bab el Mandeb. Goldman Sachs and about 6 other folks said once that was closed, oil would hit $120. Friday, there was 5.1 million barrels of oil traded within 4 seconds. Is that manipulation or is that something funny going on? It was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There's something funny going on. Who has unlimited money that they can print? I don't know. All right, so then let's go to the next big situation. That's Saudi Arabia. The bank, or excuse me, Lloyd's of London has refused all tanker traffic, all insurance for tankers going in the Red Sea. Make no mistake, they are putting a stop to Saudi's oil revenue. The Bank of London, Lloyd of London, that is critical. Nobody's really talking about that. Saudi Arabia attacked the Houthis and the Blowfish. I think they wanted a front row seat to the band. They got it. They're there now. So then let's go over to where it really is projecting power. Zelensky hit 2 Russian tankers that were carrying parts and supplies to Iran. Iran's communication. I think he came over from Baghdad Bob. Do you remember Baghdad Bob when he was?
Yeah.
We always loved Baghdad Bob. We found him again. They said, "Dear Mr. Zelensky, would you mind please not blowing up Russian ships? Because you are now within our range. And I don't know the name of the missile, but it's within range of Ukraine. So if you start seeing Iran hitting bases in Ukraine, they're entering the Ukraine war." Then they said 2 days before that, they said, "Oh, Mr. UK, you're letting US use our bases. Your bases are in," and you take a look at their map, they're within range. Suddenly, this war got really ugly, really quick in a few days, and oil's trading at $80 and some change. Physical delivery of a tanker in almost any port in the world is averaging $140 today, $230 in some areas. If you actually want, excuse me, may I have a cup of oil, please? It is $140 a barrel. There is going to be a time when either demand destruction brings down demand. So you have oil, diesel, gasoline, naphtha, you have everything that you got to have. It's going to bring down the demand so that they start meeting up and matching up. So you can't just have millions of barrels go paper, because that's the same thing that's happened to gold and silver right now, because that is happening. You have the oil, the retail traders are getting taken out and cleaned out. So if you're in the retail market, just sit back on the sideline with your cash, because it's let the big boys try to manipulate the markets. I said it. Yes, they're doing that. So here's a good, do what?
You not wrong.
Very good assumption about market manipulation. I'm with you this morning that it should take a closer look. Thank you very much. I'll tell you what, this is absolutely despicable when you sit back and think we're supposed to be having ethics on everything, but you have to sit back and realize I wouldn't want to go against Secretary Bessent. He's taken down countries before. Now, when we sit back and take a second, this is about the uranium and how did they get all, they are now have enough for what, 10 nuclear bombs. Supposedly Iran has the nuclear material for that. How did they get that uranium? I think it's tied to other political leaders in the United States. And once we get that uranium, you can track uranium molecules to where it was bought. Was this Russian uranium that was provided by the Clinton administration? I don't know. That's why it is a huge issue, because there's bigger political problems than just, oh, by the way, this is a thing. What happens if we go in and try to get the molecules and really prove that? All of a sudden it flips the entire U.S. political system on its heels. That is what this is about.
That's interesting.
Dang.
Do what?
I said, well, dang, that sounds serious.
Just sit back and enjoy the show, because this is absolutely hilarious. When you sit back and realize this is about energy security. Pipelines and choke points are all coming into play. And I want to bring back to the map here for just a second. And you take a look at this canal, David, the pipeline you were mentioning up over here is very critical. And you say there's already contracts, but a VLCC, Tammy, for us Oklahoma State folks, that's a very large crude carrier. That they have to unload a VLCC to go through the Suez Canal. So you have to only transport, let's say, 1.5 million barrels on a VLCC, maybe 1 million. So you have to take it down halfway just to get
Yeah.
through the Suez Canal.
Yeah.
Then you add all of the shipping back around and everything else. You're adding millions and millions of dollars to each load. But it goes back to my original point that the Bank of London and Lloyd's of London have stepped in to do geopolitical leverage and shut it down. So I guarantee you by Tuesday or Wednesday, we will probably see oil spike again because we have reached past the point. This is my opinion. At some point, you can't manipulate the markets.
Well, that's right. It can't go on forever. But we used to say that about the Fed pouring billions of dollars into the stock market every day. And back in 2011, when it started, everybody was saying, well, gee, this can't go on. What do they call it? Quantitative easing. It was actually
Yeah.
started in 2010.
Yeah.
And everybody was saying, oh, this can't last very long, can't go on forever. Well, hell, it lasted a decade. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with you. It can't last forever, but you wonder how long whoever is doing this is going to be willing to keep doing it, and how much debt money you're willing to print in debt.
If you can print money, you can do it all day.
Well, and that, of course, is the cause of underlying inflation that we're all suffering with, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Trillions and
Yeah.
trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. If the global economy, there's two big questions here. And Dr. Nemeth, this is a big one for the UK and Germany, because Germany is having Bloomberg wrote a wonderful piece this morning saying that Germany is losing all chances of people investing. Just like we're having in blue states, all blue states are leaving, companies are leaving blue states. So net zero equals deindustrialization. And so we have the high oil prices, high energy prices. I believe Europe is now 60% filled on their gas right now, and they're still behind for their summer refill. I have to go check that. Cutter says they're not going to be doing LNG for quite a while. We got a serious problem, and it's called energy security starts at home. And what's going to happen?
Well, thanks for bringing that up about natural gas, because that's what I was going to say. We've been talking about the oil pipelines and how you move oil and so on. But the really big one is the LNG. The LNG coming from Qatar and the other sort of Gulf Coast the other Gulf Coast countries there that trying to get it over to Europe and to China, the ones who really need it. And yeah, I mean, I think the EU's in trouble. It's tight. Like apparently the storage levels are tighter than they were in 2023, and it depends on what winter is. I mean, their storage capacity is around 100 to 110 BCMs, and they're behind. And they're behind because I think they're waiting for this to be sorted out. How do you get that? I think right now they're at about 53 to 55% of their capacity, so they are behind. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. We have the United States, Nigeria, Algeria, and Qatar saying you have to do something about your methane rule because that's supposed to kick in January, and it would be for companies that don't comply with this European rule, it's 20% of their global sales or whatever is the penalty. And the US is like, no, we're not going to do this. And the other three countries. And all the EU did is say, well, we'll delay the penalties for 3 years. So you have time to build up robust monitoring, reporting, and verification. So the EU isn't in a position to be making these kinds of claims, yet they are. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with if LNG capacity can improve over time. People are just talking about the oil right now, but I think the natural gas is the big issue. David, what do you think about that?
Well, we have a question from, I think it's Travis Lynn. Why is Qatar saying they're not liquefying anytime soon? Or are they sheltering in place? Well, if you remember back in March, Iran hit their main liquefaction facility with a couple of missiles and took them offline. They had to declare force majeure and said initially they wouldn't be up for a year.
They have,
Then they did.
yeah, sorry, David. They have 18 trains. They hit
Yeah.
2 of those trains. Of those 2 trains, it'll take 5 years to get back online. So that was about 20% of the world's LNG supply. So again, here comes the math again, 20% of 20%. So you got 20% come back online. They basically said they have a force majeure until October starting point.
Right.
So they don't even know if they can start then. It's
But
by the
remember,
way, we're going to
in
put
in early May, they tried to start up, suffered
Yeah.
a major incident, and had to shut in again. And so they've now said, well, we'll get back online when we can get back online. It was a big mistake for them to try to start up again early.
Yeah, they're able to produce a little bit, but it's certainly not what they were
Yeah.
able to do before.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's 3 to 5 years to rebuild that capability.
I want to
So
just put a pin in this conversation, because that 20% of the world's LNG is also, there's another number in there, and I don't know what I believe it's 18% of the world's fertilizer comes from that area.
yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have to go fact check myself. So I think it's about 18%, but that's still a lot of fertilizer offline.
And helium, a big
And
percentage
helium.
of the world's helium had been coming out through the Strait of Hormuz from the Middle East, and hasn't been now for over 4 months.
Trouble we're in.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself who's the normal buyer of that ammonia, urea that they were exporting from the Middle East. So it's like one of the interesting things about net zero is that a lot of the production of fertilizer and whatnot was offshored in order to reduce emissions in the European Union or even the United States to some extent, and Canada a little bit, but not really. But in any event, this was offshore. They were getting a lot. The European Union was getting a lot from Russia, and then with all the sanctions against Russia because of the attacks in Ukraine, they had to look elsewhere. So they were looking to the Middle East, and it's not like with that they're incapable of making fertilizer. They would just choose not to because it's because of the emissions profile with it.
Yes.
So it's once again, net zero is creating
my
these
God.
problems that would otherwise would have permitted some resilience in such emergency or crisis situations as this. And I'm hopeful that lessons will be learned, but I don't know. I feel like they just tripled down on stupid. But
Yes,
um,
TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, is not the only global mental illness impacting everyone today. The climate alarm religion is, in fact, a mental illness at this point, as illustrated by that exact sort of decision being made, not just in the UK, not just in Canada, not just across Europe, but in many other countries around the world. These are the decisions that are being made by the people in charge. And they have lost the ability to give a damn, apparently, about human life at this point in their religious zeal to get to net zero. And that's a mental illness as well as a religious pursuit.
Tammy, the lead buyers, according to Grok, excuse me, my good buddy, Mr. Grok, India was the top. Brazil was next at 10%. You also have notable buyers of Japan, Morocco, and Korea.
wow. Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's a
So-
lot of the world's food production we're talking about.
Yeah. Um, so someone had a question there about Nigeria being invited as an associate member of the International
Oh,
Energy
yeah.
Agency. Um, from an oil strategy perspective, Nigeria has a lot of resources, and you have to ask yourself what has been holding back the production and whatnot in Nigeria. And um, that could be a great topic for another day. But David and Stu, what do you make of this move to include Nigeria as part of the IEA? Will this be helpful from an energy security perspective? Is joining the
Well,
IEA a good thing?
I mean, Nigeria is a big global producer, but the short answer to the problems with producing there is it's been in a constant state of civil war for I don't know how long, how many decades. Chevron and Shell have both, and ExxonMobil have both had significant presence in those countries over the years, and constantly have your operations disrupted, interrupted, um, seized by rebels or forces of one side or the other, and it's an incredibly difficult place to operate. Whether it's worth their time to be in the IEA, I think that question can be asked of any country, frankly. Whether it's worth the time and the dues you pay to be part of the IEA. What do you think, Stu?
Um, I'm interviewing NJ Inuk, the director of the African Energy Chamber, here soon on his new book. And one of the biggest things about Africa, he said, giving them handouts is absolutely the worst thing you can do. It's the same reason that we have signs, don't play with the buffalo in the United States, or don't feed the bears in the parks. Handouts don't do anybody any good. In fact, I'm going to have a meme of that, a buffalo throwing somebody around. But having subsidies is the same thing with wind and solar. Having subsidies is don't feed the bears. Don't feed the bears subsidies for 40 years and expect a different result. So, I think if Nigeria was to be invited to the International Energy Agency, yay, get them get them a seat at the table. It doesn't make any difference. What does matter is the International Monetary Fund changing their policies so that they loan money on two things: natural gas power, coal power with clean filtering on it, and transmission lines, rather than wind and solar that can't scale. You can't tell me that wind and solar scale on a grid after all these years. They don't.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it. But the other element that gets discussed, but perhaps isn't really considered as part of the big problem, but it is a big problem. It's the security and theft, corruption, and governance issues in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Like the Niger Delta, I remember it was even a long time ago. There were people who would try to tap into an oil pipeline to take the crude, um, which is a problem. There's illegal refining that goes on in Nigeria. They keep changing the laws because of the various corruption issues, trying to get anything done. Lots of things have to happen in order for stuff to get done. And a lot of the majors left because of these uncertainties and security risks and whatnot. The infrastructure now is aging because they did build infrastructure some time ago, but it requires constant maintenance. But with the security risks, it becomes a problem. So okay, they become an associate member. I really don't know if that's helpful for dealing with a lot of these governance issues. Maybe you'll be able to have more data coming out of Nigeria, but that data would be questionable to some extent. So, interesting question. Thank you for that. I guess we'll see. Time will tell what that will do. But yeah, it just
Can I
Nigeria.
make
So
just an analogy on one point you made about people trying to illegally tap into the crude oil lines and steal the oil? We used to
Yeah.
have that problem. I worked for 3 different companies in my career that owned El Paso natural gas pipelines out in West Texas, and we used to have that issue on the EP&G main line at the various above ground interconnects, where people would come in and try to tap in, and at certain points you could tap into the line. There were actual valves, and you could take the drip liquids from that natural gas stream and put it in your gas tank and run your car with it. We used to have
Oh my
issues.
gosh.
I mean,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So it happens in Texas too.
That's crazy. Why would people
Yeah.
do that?
Well,
Yeah, free gas. Yay.
saves money.
Um, Someone had a question earlier on about Trump's executive order on Thursday, I think it was, on data centers.
Let me
And
go
it
look.
was, I'm trying
Ooh,
to see where that
I
was.
missed that. I didn't even see that order. That ain't right.
Oh, no, I just wanted to say thank you, Rodney. Stu is correct for the second time in my life. I appreciate that. Thank you, Rod.
It's from Fainer 27, where he said that the question was, he or she, what was the Trump news with data centers as military installations? My understanding from that executive order is that it's not declaring the military installations, but saying they're central for national security, and
Yeah.
to allow permission to build them on military installations. So, in order to bypass some of the issues regarding the protests or different communities who don't want them, the executive order is to streamline the review process and to open the pathways to build them on military owned land, defense land, government land, whatever. So that's my understanding of it.
There is 19 nuclear reactors going on 19 military bases in the United States under executive order for that. And I believe that that's what I'm going to have to go find this and see if I can answer that. It's not a blanket statement saying all data centers are now military installations. And
That's right.
I saw some of the folks we're all going nuts saying that Trump is now making data centers military so he can defend them. No, that's not
Yeah.
what it was
No,
about. It
no.
was about putting 19 of them on there. And David, you've interviewed somebody on that before.
Did I? I don't even remember now. Maybe I did.
Yes, a young man that was involved with military data centers. Anyway,
Yeah, so I mean,
Sorry.
it's designating them as national security, critical national security infrastructure. It's not saying that they're military only, just that they're critical for stuff, and to build them on military installations, which prioritizes the sort of fast federal permitting, but it's not saying they're military. But
Yeah.
it's a sort of deliberate misunderstanding, I think, by critics who have a vested interest in trying to stop the data centers. Because if you think about it, the military applications that they use for coordinating the drones and whatnot, it all requires that kind of data processing. And so yes, it's a national security issue, and it enables some other things. So yeah.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, and it's essentially, I just looked at it. It's essentially the same order related to data centers that he did last year with nuclear projects that Stu was talking about, and it's an effort just to try to kickstart the industry
Yeah.
going forward, right? Because the
Yeah.
nuclear industry definitely needed a jump start from after 40 years of negligence by the federal government and obstruction. And so
Yeah.
does the data center industry now that it's become subject to this astroturf protest movement funded by left-wing billionaires in China. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and so it's just you use federal facilities, and it probably won't be limited to these military facilities. Federal government owns a third of the land in the western United States. You could apply it to any federal lands.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
Yeah.
I'd
And
like
Go ahead, Stu. Go ahead.
Sorry. Governor Hochul, I'd like to give her a shout out today for being stupid. Unbelievable.
That's every day.
Uh,
Isn't it?
I just love saying that. Sorry. She is absolutely the most highly respected person in her own mind, because she stood up and she goes, I'm standing up for consumers. I'm going to block data centers.
For a
You know how
year.
many it impacted 5. I mean, she only had 5 that this would impact, and they all went, thank you. We don't want to be in New York anyway. So it was more of a grandstanding, saying that she's standing for consumers while she is the number 2 highest priced electricity in the United States.
And do
Well
you
done.
know how many data centers already exist in New York State? Safely 130
No idea.
something
Yes.
data centers. already.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my
And
gosh.
how many can afford to stay there? None.
Well, that's going to become the big problem in New York, right?
Yeah. Yeah. On another issue, besides choke points, since we kind of discussed the UK a little bit, there is a new prime minister. He has appointed a new cabinet. Ed Miliband, the Muppet, is now the foreign secretary, which everybody's like, are you kidding me? But the person who replaced him at the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero is
Jennifer
even
Granholm.
no, she's an even bigger radical than him. And I thought, really?
What's her
Her
No
name
name?
is
way.
her name is Miata Fanbula, and she used to be the head of the New Economics Foundation.
What's her
Which
last name?
Fanbula, it's Fahnbulleh, and she was she's been really.
Ooh.
She was born in Liberia, came to the UK as a child refugee. But the New Economic Foundation is like one of these progressive socialist groups like a think tank that provides justification for things like net zero and whatnot. Major funders of it are like the Oak Foundation, the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, and so on. So it's
Of
like
course.
it's the typical whatever. And it's all part of this kind of more transnational new economy network where it's all about capitalism is bad and we need to do rapid decarbonization and so on. And that's what she's been doing. She's done for the past 10 years public advocacy for net zero and shutting down the North Sea. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Oh my. This.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think because she was only elected in 2024, so she's really junior and gets this key cabinet post. But she was working as a junior secretary underneath Ed Miliband, and I think she was providing a lot of the sort of policy framework. I think I don't know, could be wrong,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
She was born in Liberia.
yeah.
Yeah. So Miliband, back to Ed, our favorite Moppet, is now foreign
Secretary.
secretary. So that means that at future he'll be there with the prime minister at the G7 and
Yeah.
all these international conferences now.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, he's it's the equivalent of Secretary of State.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I mean, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But the new guy just appointed a bunch of corrupt people. Big surprise. So, yeah. It's
And as
kind of like
always,
what they,
so go ahead.
it's kind of like what they did in Canada. So when Justin Trudeau proved to be really popular, they just switched him out with Mark Carney, who gives the vibe, right? And so Starmer was running into trouble, really unpopular. So now they just switched him out with some guy who pretends to be one of the people and everything else, but it's still the same old, same old. In fact, probably a little more radical. Well, they think they can push further left now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite saying about left wing politicians is they always fail upwards, right? So
I
Miliband has
know.
been a complete disaster as your climate and net zero overlord, and so now he fails upward to become the foreign minister. Holy smokes! I guess next change he'll become the prime minister, right? He seems to be on a bullet towards number one.
Yeah, maybe. I know he has aspirations for that, so
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see what happens. The
mercy.
UK. Have mercy. It's the same with the EU. I don't know. Like when Stu had mentioned Germany and China just recently locked down on kicked a bunch of European companies out. And one was Rheinmetall, which is like one of the really big chemical and metal producers that was operating in China, and they've been kicked out. So I don't know, like these European companies leave Europe to set up branch plants in China because it's cheaper electricity, cheaper labor. Um, Now I don't know what they're going to do because everything is very expensive in the EU. And my concern is that there's these Chinese companies who are offering to take over factories.
Sure.
So, like BYD and a couple of the other Chinese EV companies said, "We'll take over the Volkswagen plant. We'll keep jobs, we'll keep it open and so on." And I don't know what happened with the retooling that they were going to do for defense production. I think in Europe, defense just takes forever to get anything
Yeah.
approved and whatnot. So
Boy, oh boy, the fun never ends, does it?
no, which is always super exciting.
What is this, Aslan Miliband at the next COP? Too? Yes, he'll be at COP 30. How many will it be? 31 this November. Where's that
32?
going to be held? 32. When's that going to be held? Where?
I don't know.
Who's hosting? I can't remember now.
Well, I know
Anyway,
that they're trying to break it off so that only the people who are super committed meet, and
yeah,
and that
yeah,
they stop having the more open meetings because apparently they're being infested by people who are disagreeable.
yeah.
I
That's
don't
that's
know.
how
I
the
don't know.
left always does it. If you get your meetings get invaded with inconvenient messages, well, then you just segregate out the inconvenient messages. We've got now county governments in the United States now imposing no disagreement orders at their regular meetings and throwing people in jail who come into their open meetings under the Open Meetings Act, arresting them and throwing them in jail if they say anything.
What?
Yes, this has happened twice now in two different counties, one in Kansas and one in Rhode Island or Connecticut somewhere. So that's the new trend in the
Kansas.
United States. Yeah, in Kansas, in a
Wow.
Democrat county in Kansas.
Okay, so if you disagree with what the council's saying, you're not allowed to disagree.
That's right.
Wow.
You can't speak.
Wow.
And these are open meetings. I mean, we have open meetings laws in every state now that require these elected bodies to allow public comment. And they are now saying no, we won't do that anymore. And nobody seems to be interested in enforcing the law. No
Yeah.
surprise.
Yeah, big surprise in the kind of blue
Yeah.
counties and blue states. Yeah.
Well, but I
Hmm.
mean, Kansas is a Republican state overall. The state government needs to enforce its Open Meetings Act. And
Yeah.
so far, nothing.
Yeah, so to kind of tie this back to choke points, it's like we have various laws and agreements regarding maritime transport and everything else. And I agree, David, with your assessment that it's like if you break it, you own it. And yes, was going should Trump have gone into Iran? We don't know the real nature of the nuclear threat or whatever, but you got to finish it. And
Yeah.
okay, the first part may be his fault, but the Houthis doing their thing, is that really his fault? So it's like at some point, the international community should say, we need to put our foot down and show force so that it's a deterrent from other people exploiting such choke points. Because if you let groups get away with it now, then that can boil over and get exploited in other jurisdictions, which then throws all of maritime travel and trade into chaos. So, yeah.
Yep. Exactly, and it's when the Houthis were blowing up ships, firing on ships. What was that? 5, 6 years ago, the entire international community, including China and Russia, objected. Right.
Yeah.
Um, but today, none of them have anything to say. But when it happened previously, Joe Biden was the president, not Trump.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there was no TDS factor involved there, right? And so, but now there is, and there will be through 2028 until there's another election. So that impacts everything, unfortunately.
Stu?
I just think Trump's going to run again just for fun. I loved his hat the other night at this speaker event for the thing. I loved it when he put Trump 28 on there. Sorry,
Oh my
I
gosh.
I enjoyed it just as a
Just to give
troll.
Mark
I could.
Brennan a nervous breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what the solution is to the Trump derangement syndrome. It's like, even if let's say a new Republican gets elected afterwards, whether it's Rubio or Vance or whoever, would the international community change? I don't know. I don't
It's
know.
a real interesting question. I know our news media will treat whoever any other Republican exactly as they've treated Trump, because the same way they treated Bush and McCain and Romney once they became the nominee. So, but internationally, I don't know exactly how the reaction would be, because so far this has been uniquely a reaction to Trump and the threat that at least they believe he represents to the global order. And
Hmm.
these other Republicans like McCain and Romney and George W. Bush were creatures of the global order, and so I think internationally the reaction to a different American president would be different, just because of that factor. And but I don't know. Maybe we're just in a new world where any Republican president is going to get the same treatment from everyone now.
I just like to give a shout out to the whole fake news media across the entire globe. And one of the things that I'd like to say about the World Cup happening actually in the United States, I thoroughly enjoyed finding out that the rest of the world hated America because of the media. And then you see every millions of
Yeah.
people going to the World Cup game having a blast. So if the world could get rid of politicians and the leaders, we would all get along and have no wars.
Oh, well, we'd also need to get rid of journalists, quote unquote journalists, like Nanny Minton Beddoes, who conducted that interview with Elon Musk last week and is the editor in chief of The Economist, who is
Yeah.
nothing other than a a Goebbels style propagandist, just like the people who run CNN and MSNBC in the United States. You'd have to get rid of all them too, and have them find other endeavors to pursue. Keep them out of the media, because, as you said, the media portrayal of the United States in places like Texas was the reason why so many of those soccer fans had a negative expectation of what
Yeah.
they were going to get out of their trips here, and were so overwhelmingly shocked by reality. And yeah, but I agree with you, Stu. I mean, it's got to be the politicians and the media, because they are now one and the same.
Well,
Sorry,
no,
Tammy.
go,
I
Stu.
absolutely loved Elon Musk. 'Cause, I don't think it's me. I think that I have 250 million people following me and like me. I think they hate you. What a great line. Way to go, Elon.
But it didn't phase her. If you saw the interview she did the next day with some podcaster, left wing podcaster here in the United States, didn't change anything about her view of the world.
No,
No
you
impact
can't change a liberal.
Well, you guys have no idea what it's like, how the media represents any kind of Republican aspect of the United States in Europe and the
Oh, I
UK.
know. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's insane. It is just insane. And when Obama was in power, oh my gosh, glowing, America's great. Look at Obama. everything's fantastic. They feature Michelle Obama's books everywhere. They have all these podcasts about it, all these news programs about them. And then the minute a Republican, especially Trump, it's like it's the end of the world. You might as well be an Iranian saying death to America and everything else. And the problem is it's quite subtle. It seems unsubtle, if
Right.
if you're more conservative, it's like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? But how things are represented are very subtle, and it feeds into just the general perception that the average Brit or the average European has of the United States. And it's amazing to me when we have conversations how much of these talking points come out. They don't think deeply about what's going on. They don't do their own research. It and I'm talking about just average people going to a book club, going to just the neighbors, having a chat at the pub. It's the shallow talking points they hear from the BBC repeated ad nauseum.
Yeah.
And if you push at any point, like, can you dig a little bit deeper? How about this? How about that? It's like a bomb goes off. But if you say, "Oh, Obama, yeah, absolutely. Poor Hillary Clinton," they will commiserate with you like crazy. But oh my gosh, these crazy, Trump people and right wing and conservatives and every epithet you can think of that's negative is brandished upon the American people. So it's surprising, not surprising that she would have that viewpoint, the contempt in her face and voice in and I'm just like, "Elon, come talk to, like, me and some normal people instead
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
these,
Why are you
people who
talking to
hate
her?
you."
That's what I couldn't
Yeah.
understand. It infuriates me. Trump does it too. Trump reaches out.
Yeah.
All these propagandists at the networks and CNN have his phone number, right? Call him every day. So
Yeah.
he's platforming those people by doing that. Why are you platforming Nanny Mitten Meadows, Elon Musk, when you could have been platforming somebody who actually understands something about the real world instead?
Yeah, Stu
Why are
Turley,
you doing that?
Dr. Tammy Nima, David
Yeah.
Blackman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, or I mean, there's a thousand other options here. Molly Hemingway at the Federalist. Why not go
Yeah.
to her?
She's
Uh,
amazing.
yeah, she's
John
incredible.
Solomon.
John Solomon. Why not?
Yeah.
Instead, you go to Nanny Mitten Meadows. So what did you accomplish? You gave the Economist a completely failed what was. I mean, I remember being in college and could not wait on Fridays to get to the university library because on Fridays was when we got the Economist and U.S. News and World Report and all these great economic journals. I was in business school. I wanted to read what everything was happening, right? Foreign Affairs magazine. They're all worthless, useless, just propaganda, pure propaganda
Yeah.
now. They used to feature some of the greatest writing in media that's ever been. I mean, it
Yeah.
was just I would sit there for hours reading these things and taking notes. Uh, and I haven't clicked on any of those websites in years now, and wouldn't
Yeah.
do it just because I know they're pure propaganda. So it's a tragedy that Musk, the world's wealthiest man and the president of the United States, still continue to platform these propagandists as if they were actual journalists. And that does great damage to everything in our society by continuing to pretend they are real news organs. And I'm done now. Sorry.
That's okay. In March, I want to add, the Rothschild family sold its share and controlling interest of The Economist to a Canadian billionaire, and I believe he is the controlling. His name is Stephen Smith, and he bought a 26.9% minority stake in the Economist Group, and he also owns I think the controlling shares or something of Glass Lewis,
Oh God.
which is the proxy advisor group,
Oh God.
right? But
Holy smoke.
yeah, so apparently he owns some other financial-ish publications.
Wow.
So just thought I'd add that a little bit. Oh, and here, no, it's a different Steve Smith. Sorry. But in Canada, we have a state broadcaster called the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which they tried to model on BBC or whatever. And there's a secret memo that was released or something where the federal government wants to put the CBC in charge of fact checking news for the nation.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I just want to throw that in there.
Holy smokes.
So lots of fun. Lots of fun
Yeah.
coming up in the next little while.
Well, thank you all for joining us. I hope you're all duly depressed now and you can face the rest of your week.
Yay! And we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.